What up, world, and welcome back to Real Talk Sports with Rico. Today, I will be your host. Today, we are talking about one of my favorite sporting events in all of sports, and that is the NCAA tournament. I'll be telling you how I think Lamar Jackson will be a Washington Commander by the time the next NFL season starts here. And then we'll be updating briefly here about the NFL free agency here. Briefly, I'll be kind of going through some teams. We'll just be talking about how certain free agent signings could affect the NFL season. So, super excited for today's podcast, guys. Just a little house cleaning here. Just to let you know, we are on YouTube here. Make sure that you definitely go ahead and smash that like and subscribe button here. And also, too, if you look up there to the top of my head here, you will see that we actually have a audio version of the podcast, which does play on Spotify podcasts, which is actually Anchor. Now they've switched over to the platform here, but it is Spotify where you can actually find my show. I'm there every Sunday here. And then you get a chance here to see the actual video podcast, which currently updates once a week. Generally, it is on Sunday. Sometimes that does switch up to a Monday as well, guys, but we always keep you posted here. So without further ado, let's go ahead. Let's jump into some hot NCAA basketball, guys. I mean, what a tournament it has been. I mean, it has been super exciting, guys. And essentially, I'm just kind of going through the regions here and just kind of highlighting some of the performances here thus far. We are currently in round two. Right now, the Michigan State Spartans are taking care of business against Marquette, even though Shaka Smart has Marquette right now on the hunt here. Could be a huge momentum swing going into the second half. But let's start here with the South region here and the eventual championship game team that I actually picked, which was Alabama. Got a chance to see them a ton in the SEC tournament here. And I think that they are for sure one of the best teams out there. You look at Brandon Miller, this guy for sure would be the number one pick overall at 6'9", handles it like a guard. He definitely has kind of like a Paul George feel to him on the defensive end. It is very fluent. It is effortless. And the fact that Alabama is so long, man, they're so big and they are doing a terrific job with those bigs and being able to step out and knock down threes. They love to go ahead and actually dictate pace and make it fast break basketball and turn it into a track meet. And really, that's what the NCAA tournament is all about. Yes, you come in, you have your style of play, but you also have to have enough grit that you will win the rock fight sometimes, because it does get ugly and the other team does dictate the pace and the space, and you've got to be able to adjust on the fly. That's the spectacular thing that I love about the NCAA tournament, because we're not talking about a 7-game series now. We're talking about one game where all it takes is for you to execute in that one particular game. The bounce particularly goes in your way. Your guys step up in that particular moment. You're advancing to the next round here. So I want to highlight Alabama here as they are set for now the Sweet 16, as they actually won their second round here last night against Maryland, taking care of business 73-51. They are currently set to face San Diego State, a fifth seed here, who has actually been on quite a run for themselves. San Diego State came in as a fifth seed here. They've already knocked off Charleston. They came back and knocked off Furman here, which I think was the upset so far in the South. We'll talk about them here momentarily, but I have to take my credit off to San Diego State. They've done a terrific job in actually knocking down three-point shots in a timely manner. Their defense has been quite pesky here. And the one thing that I will say as well is another way that you can win in this tournament is you've got to have players who step up, and I used to joke about this with a friend as well, that it's players that's essentially come in averaging 4, 7, 8 points or something like that, and then they have these outbursts for 20 points or so for the next couple rounds or whatever the case may be. You have to have those type of performances in the NCAA as well to move on. And I think San Diego has actually got some guys that have had that performance really step up here in the NCAA, which is great because that's what you want. If anything, you want it on the big stage, and San Diego State has been able to do that. Next up, I want to talk about the upset, I think, of the South over here in that South region, and that was Furman versus Virginia. Look, Virginia had the number 4 seed Virginia against the 13 seed Furman here in the first round. They had Virginia had Furman right where they needed to. I mean, it looked like they were going to escape there. When you looked at it at the end, the young guard Clark there gets trapped. An experienced point guard at that. Kihei Clark, yeah, I believe his name is Kihei Clark, gets trapped. He had a timeout in his pocket. Obviously, the heat of the moment, didn't really know. And essentially, he gets trapped and he goes to throw the ball towards his goal. But because the trap is so well, and his teammate is actually open, and he can't get it all the way down the court, Furman steals it. They get it to a guy that hadn't had a great day shooting all day. I think he was like maybe 0 of 7, 0 of 8 going into it, hits a three-pointer, drains it, and Virginia ends up losing in that fashion. A tough way to lose. I mean, on a steal, you don't have time to set your defense, and you essentially are scrambling, and they hit you with a three-point play there. And the one thing that I will say, too, about Virginia is I actually had them advancing actually pretty good. I mean, I think I had them probably to the Sweet 16, maybe. I got to check my bracket here, but I did have them advancing, certainly from this first round. Virginia was, to me, vulnerable because when you talk about your pace and you talk about how you want to come in and you want to dictate your pace to impose your will on some of these teams, the one thing about Virginia is they play super slow. And if you play a slow down basketball game, that essentially means that everybody has a chance against you if they can stay mentally tough. That's the one thing that I think you'll notice when it comes down to upsets and brackets. The teams that continue or they hang in there and get the upset, it's because they're able to stay mentally tough. It's not like they're up the whole entire time. There are times where, yes, the underdog does come in. They kind of punch the bigger seed in the mouth, and they're able to hang on. And it's like the bigger seed kind of comes back. But then because they've held the lead, the energy certainly goes to the lower seed there. But this was a situation where Virginia had these guys, and they had them down for quite some time. But Furman just continued to keep chipping away. They just wouldn't go away. And they just knew that as they stayed mentally tough, they were going to get a chance at the run. And they did. And they took advantage late in the game, which is the best time to take advantage, right? It's not how you start, it's how you finish. Furman did the terrific job there. And that's how you do it if you're looking to knock off the top seeds here. Creighton advances over here against Baylor. Looking forward to seeing that one coming up here at 7:10 today. Make sure you go ahead and check that out. They took care of North Carolina State here. Baylor's taking care of UCSB early. And then I would say the next shocker had to be Princeton here in this Southern region, man. Listen, man, they take care of Arizona, right? Nobody thought they were going to take care of Arizona, including myself. Arizona essentially was playing a lot of bully ball, and Princeton did a great job there. Give them credit. They got the young man that they have that's come over from overseas, man. They work through their big. He plays extremely well. He was carving up Arizona. They had no answer for him. And when you look at the stat sheets here, you look at Princeton and you look at their guards, a ton of guards. There was like 3 or 4 guards that knocked down 3, 4 3-pointers. And that goes into the fact that when you look at Golden State in the NBA, right, the great equalizer now is that 3-point shot. If you can get multiple guys that can hit 3-point shots, like you look at Golden State, they've got Clay, they got Steph, sometimes they have Jordan Poole, and over the years they've had different shooters that have come in, Otto Porter, Iguodala. If you got shooters that can knock down shots and multiple shots from out there, you have got the chance to move on or advance or beat a team and really wear a team down, because Now, even if they're driving the ball well on you, you're getting an additional point on your end. It's only going to be a matter of time before you start to get stops, which is what Princeton was able to do once they basically took away Arizona's bigger horses inside. That's where Princeton kind of ran away here. You know that it's a smart team that runs its system. Princeton did an excellent job against Arizona. And this is the second year in a row that Arizona has come into March hobbling, so to speak. You know, you look at the guard play. Kerr was injured with the shoulder. I think he was injured last year. And it's kind of one of those things where Arizona plays so well at the beginning of the year. But then it seems like once they get into March, they become flat, man. They become vulnerable. And this is a tough one for Arizona, being a 2 seed, being knocked off by a 15 seed. And not only did Princeton go ahead and decide to dance with Arizona, they came back and danced on a 7 seed Missouri. And Missouri was right there in the SEC tournament as well. Man, Princeton has been very impressive here coming out of the South region thus far. They currently are into the Sweet 16. I'm curious to see who they will match up with here. It's either going to be Creighton or Baylor, but either one of those teams had better watch out. Princeton is for real. In the Eastern Division here, the number one game, and I would say the upset of round one, was the shortest team in the NCAA, FDU, the Knights, taking down Purdue, which is arguably the tallest team in the NCAA tournament. When you look at Zach Edey is every bit of 7'2". He is going to be the consensus NCAA player of the year. He absolutely will be a lottery pick for somebody. I think once he also develops kind of a little bit of an elbow jump shot, he kind of reminds me a lot of a bit of what Steven Adams has inside. And I could see him honestly turning into like almost like a Rick Smith's, man, the way he could knock down elbow shots at that height. I mean, he would be unstoppable. Zach Edey, tough, man, tough. But I have got to give it to FDU, man. They did an outstanding job defensively. They talked during the timeout, and I remember the announcers talking about this, but FDU felt so confident with their rotations and their backline defense that they said with about 12 minutes or so in the second half, it might have been earlier than that, they were going to front Edey, and they said, you know what? We feel like we can rotate, we can get there, we can make it tough for him on the catch, and we feel like their shooters aren't going to knock down three-pointers. And that's just what FDU did, man. They basically bullied Purdue. At the end of the game, nobody from Purdue wanted to shoot the ball. And I believe the last 7 minutes or so, Zach Edey didn't even get a shot off. And the telling sign of this particular game was when you sometimes catch a hot mic during games, okay? And I'm going to say there was a hot mic during the game where an FDU player got a block. And what was said was not PG-13. However, it did let Purdue know you are not going to just come in here and bully us like this. And I was like, that right there was the telltale sign of the game. FDU absolutely did not back down. The resilience there on the defensive end. And how about the guts to run a play for a guy that was a career, I think 35% from the three-point land? They run a play for him with a pick and pop late, and that essentially iced the game. They win 68-58. What a story here. I'm looking forward to watching these guys play here, 7:45. Another team that I'm looking forward to seeing here, they're going to mix it up with FAU against Memphis. Gutsy performance right there against Memphis. I know that they were the 9th seed. I clearly expected Memphis to go ahead and come out of here, especially since they had just come off winning their tournament against Houston, who I have going very far. And Memphis, what killed them was foul trouble. You know, when DeAndre Williams got in foul trouble early in the second half, somebody should have pulled him early on when he had 3 fouls and he should have been sitting. when he picked up his 4th foul so early in the basketball game, and then now I'm cringing because you just hear the announcer who's a coach to say, now he has to sit 7, 8 minutes. And I'm going, oh my God, that's so long. And the sickening thing about it is Memphis was up in this game. They had the momentum, they had everything going. And that's the tough, unfortunate thing about Memphis. They kind of remind me a lot of what you see with the Minnesota Timberwolves and what you saw with them in last year's playoff game, right? You would see these flashes of brilliance, man, where they would be up 10, 15 points or whatever the case. You go to get some water from the refrigerator, you turn back around, and then they're down 4 points or so. I mean, that's how they were, against Memphis last year in the playoff series. And that's what I'm talking about when you're looking at a team that is trying to figure it out and trying to mature, really. I think that's what happened to Memphis. I don't think that it was very good, that Davis, one of their best players there, had gotten to a little bit of an argument during the timeout. I think that was tough at that point and juncture of the game. And I think that was too much for Memphis to overcome there. So shout out to FAU, but I think that they have their hands full here. And like I said, man, I'm really looking forward to seeing what FDU is going to do here. I think they have the potential to get to the Sweet 16. Next up is, I would say out of this, Tennessee. They were a bit of a shocker for me, knocking off Duke. And what I was very impressed with Tennessee is the physicality in which they played with. Man, I mean, they really beat Duke's interior up. And the interior for Duke has been one of the best in all of college basketball. And I think Duke had come in winning 10 straight. They had the freshman of the year, and this guy was a stud. He's an inside outside guy. And Tennessee, literally, man, I'm talking about there was a couple, even one guy or something like that had bloody lips and stuff like that. I'm talking about Tennessee was going in there and they were really, really tough inside. And I think that was the key to the game, that physicality, the way that they continue to attack Duke's paint. Duke could not overcome that there. The way the guards were kind of getting downhill, they controlled the basketball game throughout. That's why they're currently in the Sweet 16, having won last night against Duke. Although it was a 4-5 seed, I had Duke actually advancing here. Really shocked that Tennessee was able to really come in and just put the hammer down on Duke like that. Next up here, Kentucky. That was my pick to go a little further than what they did. They just got eliminated here today by Kansas State. And how about the ball penetration by Kansas State? You talk about getting downhill. Their guard play was terrific there. And excuse me, the fact that they were able to overcome the rebounding from Kentucky. Kentucky was, in my opinion, I think the best rebounding team in the nation, maybe. You look at what they have with Oscar Tshiebwe. He is a monster down there. I believe he had a double-double before halftime. And I think he had 30 rebounds against Providence. And I'm saying to myself, I'm looking on paper, I'm saying, I think Kentucky's got this one because they're just going to out-rebound them. And there were times where they were just throwing people out of the way. But Kansas State, you have to give them credit. They stayed tough. They continued to penetrate. And not only did they penetrate, they were getting electric plays. And I'm talking about plays where guy scores and it just raises up the volume of the team that much more. Just like the alley-oop that they got going into the second half. That was beautiful. The look-off alley-oop, perfect. They were pretty much playing downhill like that all night. Johnson kind of woke up in the second half, hit him with a beautiful step back late in the game. And that was really the difference, man. You need your top dogs to really wake up. And that's what happened for Kansas State there. They hung in there. And then finally, their top scorers were able to shake loose. And hey, man, at this point in time, in this juncture, everybody can play. You're there for a reason. And you're especially in some good shape when you get your top dogs kind of wake up like Kansas State did. So congratulations to them as they are now into the Sweet 16, waiting for the winner here of Michigan and Marquette. I told you to lead off the show here. Now an update here. Marquette is up 42-40 with 11:29 to go here after being down some points here. That's the way this tournament rolls, guys. Just like that, Michigan State might be in some trouble here. Moving over to the Midwest, man. they are who we thought they were, and that's Houston knocking off the first couple games here. Yeah, it's been a little bit of a scare here against North Kentucky, excuse me. They had a little bit of a scare against Auburn last night, but ultimately were able to pull away here. I think the difference there was the fact that they got Snead, and they also got Marcus Sizer back there. And so when you get your backcourt back and you get them back fairly healthy, then they're in a good shape there. You know, Houston is long. They can step out. They do a great job in really dictating the pace and space of the game. They love to penetrate you in the fact of getting their guards into the lane, and they get easy dump offs to their bigs. And that's tough to overcome. You know, they're getting dunks, then they're turning you over, and it's like they're right back at you. And so, you know, kudos to them, you know, kind of piecing it together. You know, I think that Coach Sampson was a little nervous there because I believe Snead had like a bad knee. Sizer had the groin coming into this one. So it was looking really bad for Houston. And I was kind of worried. You know, I had Houston going pretty far in this one, but, you know, they were able to kind of, I guess, you know, the rest day or whatever, kind of piece it together. They're looking healthy. They're looking good. And they're getting into a rhythm. And they're getting back to where they were prior to that last game of their conference tournament game where they didn't really look good. So Houston looking good right now. And Miami has to face Indiana here today, 8:40. I had Miami to go at least to the Sweet 16. I'm not really feeling too comfortable about them right now based off what I saw early. You know, one of their best players, Wong, they were not able to get him started against Drake. At times, man, they really struggled to score the basketball. They looked like they were a little lost out there. But again, man, you got to be able to win the rock fight. That's essentially what they were able to do against Drake. They are not going to skate like that against a tough Indiana team that is very physical, runs at you, will attack the paint at will, can knock down shots. I mean, they could beat you in all levels. They can even hit mid-range shots as well. This is a tough coach group here from Mike Woodson. Mike Woodson obviously was a professional himself, used to be the Atlanta Hawks coach and the New York Knicks coach. So they bring a certain style of physicality here that Miami is not going to be able to just sleepwalk here for the first half here. They will find themselves in some major trouble. So I think that they might be into a little bit of an upset alert moving forward here in this next game tonight. Also in this region, one of my Cinderellas here was Pittsburgh. I picked them. I like Jeff Cable, liked him as a player. I coached them up here. They beat Iowa State. They went ahead and got to the round here against Xavier and lost today. Tough one. But, you know, hey, they fought pretty hard. They got two wins there. And in a down ACC year, yeah, they're in the ACC. It's good to see Pittsburgh and Jeff Cable coming back and coming together. Expect that program to be a lot better moving forward here. And speaking of Xavier, the fact that they're in the Sweet 16 now against Texas, who is another team who you can say they are who we thought they were. They have looked very much the part the last two rounds here on their way to the Sweet 16 here. Xavier had quite a scare in the first round against Kennesaw State here. And I love what Sean Miller said after the game when they asked him, how did you advance? And he said, I have absolutely no idea. Facts. Kennesaw did everything that they were supposed to do. In fact, they won the game, in my opinion. They really did. They out-rebounded Xavier. They were more physical than Xavier. They knocked down more shots than Xavier. They did everything correctly. It's just that Xavier was able to do just, I think, two things that kind of led to the victory. Number one, Kennesaw State had them down by as many as, I believe, 12. Xavier started to tighten up with about 6 or 7 minutes to go, and they made things that were really easy for Kennesaw to get very hard at the end. You know, they're going getting down. They were things like that. And I think Xavier started to not necessarily play with their hands, but played a little bit more with their body as far as on the defensive end, and they used their length and made those shots a bit tougher. That allowed them to go ahead and to get into gear and give themselves a chance towards the end. Excuse me. Then they were able to knock down some timely shots there. And lastly, Kennesaw State had one more opportunity maybe to either tie the game or win it. And I agree with what the guy said. 6-7 seconds to go in the game. You have to go early. They went late. They missed the shot. The ball fumbled around. Xavier got the ball, got fouled, shot the free throws. Kennesaw State had to shoot a full court shot. But if you go early, what the theory is that you can extend the basketball game, meaning that if you miss, you either get a tip or you get an offensive rebound. That's one thing that can happen. You might get fouled. You might get a chance to get back there, or you completely miss, but you get a foul and you're playing the foul game. You get another possession that way. They kind of lost the possession that way. And one thing I will say about this, and Coach Raheem, who his brother was an excellent pro playing for the Memphis Grizzlies. In fact, his brother is one of the reasons why you see stretch players being able to play and knock down three-pointers. He was that guy before the league was there. Like before Chris Bosh, it was Raheem, man. He was tough. Abdul Rahim was very tough, man, playing for the Grizzlies. But the one thing I will say about his brother here, the coach, is that this program started with just one win 4 years ago. And the fact that they are now up to 20-some wins and getting into the NCAA tournament, that speaks wonders here. And you have got to say to yourself that this is a program that is going to be on the up and up here. When you come from one win and you get to this point, it only has to go up. And so for the belief for those players to stick around for 4 years with a guy and a program that had only gotten one win like that, it speaks to the character of his team. And it also speaks to the character of the coach. What an outstanding effort there from Kennesaw State. It just sucks that they had to lose there. We talked about Texas here. Moving over to the last division here, which is the West. Tough one for Kansas. Okay, Kansas, I had them picked to go, but not all the way to the championship game. Certainly, I didn't have them dismantled by Arkansas the way that they did here. But it doesn't shock me with Coach Eric Musselman. Coach Eric Musselman was a terrific pro coach for Golden State. If you remember, I think he might have had a chance to coach Monte Ellis. Maybe he might have got the tail end of Baron Davis. I'm not sure. I can't remember. He definitely got Gilbert Arenas, but he was part of that brand of basketball, man, where they played fast and they also played physical and they continued to attack the paint. And that's what Arkansas did, I think, to Kansas really all afternoon. They did a terrific job in getting guards downhill. I mean, it wasn't the shooting, none of that. I mean, yeah, they had to knock down some three-pointers, but Kansas, if you look at their players, there were about 3 or 4 players that had 4 fouls. And that happens when you are getting attacked over and over and over and over again. And that's what Arkansas was able to do. Not only were they getting to the paint, they either were making the layup or they were drawing the foul and they were getting to the line. So it was like Kansas was in trouble. You know what I mean? So it's like some guys that normally they wouldn't want to sit at times, they had to sit them, right? Then defensively, they didn't really figure it out towards the end. And really the telltale sign for them and really kind of the indication of the afternoon is when the Arkansas player goes up for the free throw, he misses it, but gets in there and tips it over 4 different Kansas players and gets the possession back, gets fouled, and goes to the free throw line and makes free throw shots. I mean, that essentially that's the ball game right there. That really tells you the tale of why Arkansas was able to move on over Kansas, man. It's just they had that much more energy. And when you play with a lot of energy like that in the tournament, good things happen for you. Even when teams start to make their run, because you played with that type of energy throughout, you're usually in a good position. And they did. They had a great run on Kansas. They had them down for most of the day, and they were able to close out. Next up here is St. Mary's, UConn coming up here. They're right now at halftime, 30-31 here. And I like St. Mary's because a lot of people don't know who St. Mary's is. They are usually the second team behind Gonzaga in that conference there. You usually don't hear about it because Gonzaga, Mark Pugh, their success there. And they heavily recruit from the international standpoint. I think that they have quite a bit of players that they have from Australia that are tough. St. Mary's is, I think, one of the top 5 defensive rated teams here in this tournament. And so if you think you're just going to come in and you're just going to body St. Mary's, you got another thing coming. And that's what UConn was able to do against Iona in round 1. And I said that this morning on my podcast, which you can catch again on Spotify. UConn just isn't going to come in there and bully St. Mary's. It's not going to happen like that. They're very defensive minded. They're very talented. And it's going to be a dogfight in there for sure, because they're just not going to give up that type of space. They box out well, which is fundamentally sound. That kind of shows you there with St. Mary. And I get that they haven't been to the Sweet 16 probably since Matthew Dellavedova was there, but this might be the year. I think that this might be the year if they can just hold on here, and then they can knock down some timely shots and they can get UConn in some moments where they cannot score. St. Mary's can easily advance here. So they're right now 31-30, UConn up barely, but I got this being a tough game. This is going to come down to the very end here. Gonzaga TCU set the play here for the Sweet 16 here. Listen, TCU, really nice, great guard play. Gonzaga, they obviously go through Drew Timme here. The one thing I will say about Mark Pugh is that they do have some shooters around Drew Timme. I will say that if Gonzaga has to rely on the guard play, I think traditionally they've struggled there. Even when Suggs was there, who was a lottery pick for the Magic, when they had to rely heavily on Suggs and they took away Timme, Gonzaga kind of runs into some tough situations here. So it depends on who is going to dictate the style here. You know, is TCU going to be able to turn this thing into a track meet, or is Gonzaga going to be able to be methodical in its approach? Are they going to be able to cut you up from the inside outside, which is what they want to do here, and do a lot of things that control the ball offensively here? Defensively, they feel like maybe their length and athleticism is going to really pester TCU. I don't know. They didn't look too flustered here in round 1. I don't expect for them to be flustered against Gonzaga, even though Gonzaga is the higher seed here. This is why it's March Madness, but I think this is going to be quite a game here at 9:40 p.m. TBS. Next up, my team here that I have picked to go to the championship is UCLA, man. They've looked very good here the last couple rounds here, taking care of business, taking care of Northwestern last night here, 68-63. Tiger Campbell, 12 of 12 from the line, taking care of business. I love Jaime Jaquez Jr. I got a chance to watch him play in the Drew League here. And, hey, the Drew League sometimes can have a tough crowd out there. And I never will forget, he's got a crowd guy out there, and he's heckling him and everything else. And, Jaquez just kind of looks at the guy, points to himself like, "You talking to me?" Throws up his jersey, and he says, and laughs at him, and quietly goes out there and puts up a double-double. And I just love this kid's demeanor. I love how he leads. I love how Jaime Jaquez Jr. scores the ball in so many different ways. And I think he probably has some of the best footwork that I've ever seen a college player have. And that really, just mentally, man, just coming into it, he plays like years ahead of where he's supposed to be at. That's why I think he's going to be an excellent pro, because he knew that even if he was going to be undersized at the forward, it's going to be tough to guard a fundamentally sound player on the offensive end. His range has gotten better. His handle's gotten better. His passing ability's gotten much better there. And you pair that with the fact that Tiger Campbell, to me, is one of the smartest point guards in all of college basketball, and a guy certainly I would love to have on my basketball team. He kind of reminds me of what Tyrus Jones is for the Memphis Grizzlies, right? You see the Grizzlies have been able to win. Here's a guy that's a 7-to-1 turnover to assist ratio kind of guy, and that's Tiger Campbell. You need a guy like that basically can put you into the right sets out there. He is an extension of the coach. I love everything about UCLA, even though that they have their best defender at home with an injury. That's why I slightly have Alabama if they get to the championship game. This is the first time since 1995. I think this is the year for UCLA. They're in the Sweet 16. They're awaiting Gonzaga, TCU. I think they can handle either of those teams here. We'll see what happens. But right now, I love UCLA. They're really starting to play basketball at a good clip here. It's unfortunate that they don't have Johnny Juzang, who is a pro now with the Utah Jazz. But, man, this is a tough unit that has been together for some years here, and I like them moving forward. So that is the NCAA tournament. I kind of broke it down here from each division pretty much in the NCAA tournament. We will be talking about that here on the next show. But I want to bring up the next topic here, which is why Lamar Jackson will be a Washington Commander by the NFL start or the NFL season start next year. And I think it makes a ton of sense here. Washington has already cleared off a ton of cap space here. And to me, I'm not sure Washington believes in Sam Howell. Okay. And this is very interesting, too, because I just looked at Undisputed. I think that's what the show is called, with Shannon Sharp and Skip Bayless here. And the one thing they talked about is you got to have elite quarterback play. And I've said this before. I've done a segment on this show talking about franchise quarterbacks. And you've heard me say this on record. I'm like, I don't know why Washington has yet to go out and get a franchise quarterback. When they did go out and get a franchise quarterback, it led to some wins. Unfortunately, RG3 got hurt. But you got to go out and you got to go out and find a franchise quarterback. That's the difference there. The teams that go on to win Super Bowls have franchise quarterbacks. Like, look at Patrick Mahomes. The difference between an average quarterback and a franchise quarterback, you can put anything around that franchise quarterback and he still wins, right? They didn't have Tyreek Hill, which is the fastest receiver in the NFL, and they still won. Why? Patrick Mahomes is an elite franchise quarterback. Washington, for whatever reason, has not got the franchise quarterback. I think that Dan Snyder is on his way out the door. I think that in parting out of the door, I think that Dan Snyder essentially is going to say, you know what? I'm heading out the door. I'm going to do something historical, because he was the first guy to give a $110 million guaranteed contract or something like that to Albert Haynesworth, right? He is going to make history by going out and getting guaranteed money to Lamar Jackson, who, oh, by the way, that's all he wants is the guaranteed money. Washington is the team that will ridiculously give Lamar Jackson the money. And not saying Lamar Jackson is not worth it, because he is. He is worth it. He's a franchise quarterback for sure. If you move Lamar Jackson to anywhere else in the league, I guarantee you that your team will go on the up and up. But with the Washington Commanders, which is one of the most dysfunctional franchises in all of sports history, it's not going to work out too well initially. He may come in there, get him to a playoff or two, but I think it's going to be tough. Even though Washington theoretically has a lot around him that he would love, with Terry McLaurin, you have Jahan Dotson, you have Gibson over there. They have the young man playing running back out of Alabama, Brian Robinson over there as well. They have some tight ends over there as well. They have probably the most complete set of skill players that Lamar Jackson has ever played with as a pro. Right now, he's just throwing to Mark Andrews over there. So coming over to Washington, not only is he going to get an elite defense, but he's also going to get an above average offense as well. I feel like it's an upgrade, but this is why I think Washington does it. I think they do it just to try to make a splash here. They went after supposedly Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers last year. It would make no sense why you wouldn't go after Lamar Jackson this year. He has a soft franchise tag where he can negotiate with any team. And I guarantee you Washington has to be the team. He's in Baltimore. It's right down the beltway. What is it, about an hour and a half away, maybe less than that, to get to Washington? Why not? Lamar Jackson is going to be a Washington Commander by the time the NFL season starts next year. Book it. All right, guys. Next up, let's go over here to the NFL free agency here. And I'm briefly going to kind of go into this and kind of some of the things that interest me thus far here. Excuse me. And I'm going to start off with a team here that is in Washington's division, the NFC East here. The Dallas Cowboys here releasing Ezekiel Elliott after 7 seasons here. And you saw it. He was slowing down. He was making a ton of money. And obviously they went ahead and went with Tony Pollard. I think he's the more dynamic back here. If you picked him up in fantasy football, I think you definitely got the steal there. I wasn't necessarily sure about him because I was like, well, I think they're still going to feed Zeke, but he just never really picked it back up. I'm not sure where Zeke's going to go, but he's still got some football left in him. But look, Dallas has went ahead. They've gotten rid of Ezekiel Elliott here. They're going to go with Tony Pollard, who's franchise tagged here. And at this point, they bring Cooper Rush back as some insurance here behind Dak. They brought back Vander Esch, the linebacker here. More importantly, the trades, man. They got Stephon Gilmore over from Indianapolis here to make the secondary much stronger. Remember, that was one of the strong points for Dallas was defense here. But I find it interesting that they also traded for Brandon Cooks here from the Texans. And that right there kind of goes into what I was thinking about here with Odell Beckham. If Odell Beckham is right and he's ready to go, I think that Odell Beckham is a guy that you would actually sign over Brandon Cooks. And no disrespect for Brandon Cooks, because Brandon Cooks can still play at a high level. I think that a lot of people are sleeping on Brandon Cooks because he's played for a Texans team that has really struggled. And you're going to see a guy that he's certainly going to get open. And I think at times when CeeDee Lamb's not performing at wide receiver 1, Brandon Cooks is always going to perform at wide receiver 1 level, right? He's the constant pro. He's been there with the Saints before. He's been at a high level for multiple teams, and this guy can go. And so I just think that, hey, if Odell Beckham is in some good shape here, man, I just feel like, he's explosive. He's taller. He's a guy that maybe fits a little bit more with Dak Prescott in that system. Generally they like throwing to athletic wide receivers with these fades and things like that. They like to chuck the ball down the field. And it just seems like Odell Beckham Jr. is that type of guy. And so for them not to really sign him, have watched him work out a couple of times and not get him, that's a real head scratcher for me, man. And I'm starting to wonder, if Odell Beckham Jr. is actually as healthy as stated here. And even though they said he looked good in the workouts and things like that, I'm hoping that he does sign on with the Jets, possibly if Aaron Rodgers does come over there. That seems to be an interesting situation. Speaking of the Jets, since they've got Allen Lazard over there, they're possibly looking to go ahead and get Randall Cobb over there as well. So it might be a nice little reunion. And I think, you pair that with Garrett Wilson, Odell Beckham Jr., you might have a really elite wide receiver core. And if they can get Bryce Hall back from that knee injury, hopefully, man, that's a tough, scary team. It's a scary team there. So be looking out for them so far. But yeah, interesting so far, I think, with Dallas and what they've done. Houston, the Texans, bringing in Robert Woods here. I think we talked about that before. Interesting sign. I thought that Mike or Robert Woods could have probably gone somewhere else here in free agency, man. I thought that he had a good chance here to possibly go to maybe a contender. Shout out to the Chicago Bears and what they've been able to do. The fact that they brought Tremaine Edmonds back here, 4 years, $72 million on his contract, the linebacker here. But more impressively, I love what they've done at the running back position. They bring in Deontay Foreman, who I think to me can be a starting running back in just about anywhere in this league. And they bring Travis Homer over from Seattle. So that really lets me know that, they got DJ Moore over there via trade. They bring over PJ Walker from the backup position here. Like, Chicago's for real. I think Chicago's for real now as far as they're going to build around Justin Fields here. They bring Nate Davis here in at guard. So they're content here with bringing him in. They got Robert Tonyans over here, tight end from Green Bay. Like, they are bringing some legit skill players over here for Justin Fields. You got to imagine that they're only going to get better when it comes down to the NFL draft here. They're going to be able to make an impact there. I think it's going to be quite interesting, and I'm very impressed so far with what the Bears have been able to do. Jacksonville, was a team that was on the up and up. They went ahead and franchise tagged Evan Ingram here. He played at a high level here. Hopefully he can play again at a high level. I think he was definitely a big piece for what Trevor Lawrence wanted to do, or T-Law, what he was able to do. So I think he's going to be interesting and a critical piece for them moving forward. And the Las Vegas Raiders here, we just talked about franchise quarterbacks, the departure of David Carr, Jimmy Garoppolo, 3 years, $67 million here. No question that Jimmy Garoppolo can win games. No question that Jimmy Garoppolo wins in the playoffs. The problem with Jimmy Garoppolo is that it's the staying healthy is one. And also another thing too is Jimmy Garoppolo is very much, he needs to have players in place around him. Now, he does have Devontae Adams. They did pick up Jacoby Myers as well. They do have Josh Jacobs back here as well. And when I say that, he needs skill players around him to be successful, okay? If those skill players go down or they're struggling throughout the year, it's going to be a tough year for the Raiders. I really do think it is going to be that. Now, he is back with Josh McDaniels. They had one before Super Bowl. Tom Brady was the guy starting here. You're hoping that they can catch the magic again. It'll be interesting. The Miami Dolphins here go out and get Mike White, coming here from the Jets, 2 years, $16 million. I think that was a good insurance policy there, especially if Tua is not healthy. He certainly can win you a playoff game. They go out and get the defense a little bit better here, getting Jalen Ramsey over via the trade. I like that. Bringing back Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson. Those guys were a big part of what definitely what Miami wants to do as far as down the field here. So far, so good for Miami. I think that a really, really big question for them is the health of Tua. I think ultimately that is going to be the biggest deal for them. Juju Smith-Schuster, 3 years, $33 million over to the New England Patriots here. Is it going to help Mac Jones? I don't know. They do bring over James Robinson, running back here that was traded from the Jags. I like it to go along with Stevenson. I think that, Ramondre Stevenson and James Robinson will work well. I'm not sure what they're going to do with Damon Harris there, but I think that James Robinson, if he can recapture what he did as an undrafted free agent and really a fantasy football stud here, those two might be an upgrade here. They get Mike Gesicki over there at tight end. I like that as an upgrade here. Might be one of the best tight ends that Mac Jones has played with, but I still think that they still need to upgrade a lot more from the wide receiver standpoint. New Orleans goes out and gets Derek Carr. Not sure if that's really going to move the needle one way or the other. I do like the signing of Jamal Williams. I think Jamal Williams is going to be a big signing for them. He can catch the ball. He can run the ball as well. He does a lot of what Alvin Kamara does, and Alvin Kamara might miss some time there, depending on what happens legally there with what happened out there in Vegas with the fight or whatever that incident allegedly was here. So a good signing so far for the Saints. I think that they still need to address a bit more and get a little bit younger from a wide receiver standpoint, but we'll see what happens. The Giants, we talked about Daniel Jones, franchise tagging, Saquon Barkley here. They still need to go out and get wide receiver help. They did get Darius Slayton back here. They do have Sterling Shepard back, but I think that they still need to address the wide receiver standpoint in the draft coming up here. Not too bad for Philadelphia. They didn't lose too many folks so far. They do have Fletcher Cox coming back. They have James Bradbury back here. They did get Brandon Graham back here. They got Kelsey. They got Slay back. They did lose a little bit here, but they're still going to be very good. The 49ers, Javon Hargrove, I think a huge signing for them. Defensively, they got a lot better. 4 years, $84 million, getting him over from The Eagles, I think that was a great pickup. Geno Smith re-signing with Seattle. We talked a little bit about that. As far as Tampa Bay is concerned, Leonard Fournette being released, I'm curious to see where he goes. I think he could still actually be a factor for somebody. Tampa Bay did pick up Baker Mayfield for the year, so I'm not sure if he's going to, maybe start. It's possible. They don't have Tom Brady at this point in time. Washington, I talked about how they cleared out some space here. I do like the fact that they did go out and get Jacoby Brissett thus far here. I think that is going to help them. Defensively, they got a little bit better. I mean, they went out and got David Mayo at linebacker here. They re-signed De'Aaron Payne here. So they got a lot better there. They did go out there and address a little bit more with the offensive lineman, getting Nick Gates back here. I think that's going to help there, that shore up that offensive line. I think that was one of the things that the Commanders did struggle with. And obviously, if they are going to go for Lamar Jackson, they are going to need a little bit more offensive lineman help and be able to be a little bit more physical at the line of scrimmage here. So really not too much of a splash thus far in NFL free agency, guys. I think that the real signing is going to be when Lamar Jackson goes to the Washington Commanders, in my opinion here. But with that being said, guys, essentially that is the show for today. Definitely make sure that you press the like and subscribe button below here, guys, as we have another episode down here. You can also catch the show here on Spotify podcast here, which was formerly Anchor. I'll have that in the show notes below here, guys. Keep supporting us here on YouTube. For myself, this is Rico with Real Talk Sports, guys. Enjoy the NCAA tournament games here, and we will see you on the next show. Peace.